These videos first appeared on social media as several users sounded the clarion call against this abuse, largely underpinned by patriarchal overtones and primordial cultural practices where women are treated as property. In this particular case, Benson Okongo was later arrested on the 31st of August after police raided his hideout. According to the Kampala Metropolitan Police spokesperson, Luke Owoyesigire, Okongo was charged with causing grievous bodily harm and domestic violence against his wife. His file was forwarded to court and Okongo was later remanded at Chitalia prison. At least 1 out of 5 women aged 15 to 49 have experienced physical violence at some point in their life, according to the Uganda Demographic Health Survey of 2016. Joy Namitala recently escaped the shackles of bondage when she left her husband who threatened her life. Namitala, a resident of Chetume, Mukono district, says her husband turned violent barely after the COVID-19 pandemic barreled across the country in March 2020.
Lockdown we yajira. Olwonga agenze akolereyo yafunayo omukyalo omulala tadda takyakoma eno yafiisaayo. Anafe tugamba n'abaana weewaawo katubeere ewaka. Kati lockdown bwe yajira mu Kampala oba babafubutula bati ebyali eyo. N'akomawo mu kyalo. Akomyewo mu kyalo talina ssente, ffe tulina emmere yaffe gye tubadde nga tulya gye twerimira. Kati nga buli lunaku tubeera mu mbirigo. Omanye embirigo.
Namitala says the situation was amplified by the economic distress that took a toll on him.
Ekirungi teyajja na mukazi we. Bwe yajja yekka. Naye omanye omuntu okujja nga talina wadde ekikumi. Ng'ate mmwe mulina omumulabirira, ng'ate ye mukulembeza alina obba kulembera okubeera nga ye mufuzi. Naye ng'ate ali ku byammwe byabajoogerako. Olw'okuba twali mu maka ge ffe twalina okugonda.
She adds that their children have since dispersed from home because of the violent behavior of the husband.
Gwe bw'oba ne ssente kikkubya. Kikkubya lwaki tozimuwadde ate ng'anywamu. Oyina bunaku omwezi ezigenda okunywa olw'eggula agendeko wali mu banne mu kasenta. Kwegamba ne tutulugunyizibwa nga bw'okiwulira. Buli lunaku ayagala akukozese, tomanyi gye yava baleese kawuka, jjukira temukyagenda mu ddwaliro tunaagenda okwekebeza. Ate tosobola na kukimugamba, ye w'amaanyi.
Namitala's tribulation is symbolic of this dark underbelly that continues to afflict communities in Uganda. It is captured in a wider and inaugural study conducted by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, published this year in November. It shows that 56% of more than 5,000 women interviewed across the country had experienced both sexual and physical violence from their partners. Her misery also cuts across a category referred to as controlling behaviors by partners. The survey shows that a number of women reported this behavior. 54% say their men insisted on knowing their whereabouts at all times. 46% reported of being suspected for unfaithfulness. 71% of men wanted to control how their wives spend their money. 29% and 16% women reported that they were kept away from seeing their friends and family, respectively.
Mwami ono engeri gye yalekayo eri omukyala we, omukyala yakubanga essimu. Ng'akuba essimu, bw'akuba essimu ayagala ssente. N'akugamba kale mpa ssente z'oyina. Munnange n'omuwa, lw'omuwadde 2. Era nga bw'azikwata n'azisindikira omukyala. N'olabirira awaka, n'olabirira n'omukyala ow'e Kampala. Byonna nabikola. Kale oluvannyuma twabeera wera mu mbeera eyo mu kutulugunyizibwa n'empulira nga nkoye neeraliikiridde embuto kubanga nga ndowooza nti ndi muntu mukulu ate ngenda kwongera kufuna ki lubuto kubanga nga ekyo nali nakikoowa. Nze nadduka ne nzija ku ddwaliro nkole family planning nga tamanyi kuba luli nali nagivaako nga manyi takyajja waka tewali buzibu. kati nenzija ku ddwaliro nga tamanyi, nenzija nengamba abasawo nkole ntya, nteekemu ki ekinanyamba. Mu kunsomesa bo bansomesa de bangamba teekamu ka IUD. Ka IUD tukassa munda biki nga bwe bambuulira. Nange nenkigula kubanga nali mpulira nga omutima gunnuma. Nengamba kanteekemu IUD. Okudda waka yali alina okuncunya mbuulira woova obadde mulwadde kiki ekikututte. Nayogera ekituufu nengamba nkubuulire nva ku family planning kubanga waliwo ebintu ebizibu okulimba. Kuba nali sirinaayo kyenjagalayo kirala, nali siri mulwadde ekituufu. Kakati nangamba family planning byebiki byokolera wano maka gange biki kwegamba nga mukambwe muzibu. Nemubuulira ekituufu nti mbutuufu emyaka gyange mba saagala kwongera kufuna kuzaala. Kakati nagamba nti kakati eyo family planning gendo ejije mu mangu.
Namitala said she asked the area councillors to come to her rescue.
Ne babeeranga kwegamba bamugamba mu erudda n'erudda. Omusajja yawuliriza n'abeera down nnyo. Nagenda okulaba nga omusajja bwe baagenda ng'akyuka yekka mpola. Eyali ampita gwe nga gwe erinnya waka gwe. Nagenda okulaba nga atandise kumpita maama w'abaana.
The Uganda Police Annual Crime Report of 2020 highlights the spike in cases of defilement and domestic violence. For example, the report indicates that 17,664 cases of domestic violence were reported to police compared to 13,693 reported in 2019, giving a 29% increase.
Mbeera gye twayitamu bwe buzibu bw'abaana obutasoma. Bwe tuzze tutambuliramu ng'abaana tebasoma, kyavaamu abaana ne bafuna bannaabwe. Omuwala n'afuna munne n'amutwala ne batubulako. N'okumanya gye bali tetumanyeeyo. Kaakati munnange lubeera luli olwo. Omuwala yali wa myaka 16 n'abula. Kaakati mba ndi awo ng'omwana akomyewo ng'ajja akaaba maziga, alina n'olubuto, omulenzi amuyisizza bubi, ekyokukola nga tetukiraba. Kaakati ate omuwala bw'ajja ate embeera ffe mbi ne tukyukira ne taata naye n'atabuka. Taata naye n'atabuka ng'agamba maama gwe ebintu obimanyi olabika gwe wali ebintu.
The Chief Political Commissar, who also doubles as the head of the Department of Childcare and Family Protection, Asan Kasinje, says he is keen on improving the gathering of evidence which can lead to the prosecution of such offenders.
We as police, we must do our work because these other stakeholders will be encouraged to do their work when we also do our work. And our work involves around psychosocial support. It also involves child and family protection officers doing the kind of counseling that is needed to make sure that the victims and survivors are at ease at the police station to be able to tell their stories. But also it involves investigation. It involves investigations. It also involves, working with other stakeholders. For example, the medical teams, the social workers, the state attorneys, the prosecutors, and even going to the communities in order to be able to talk to them. So my counsel was that everybody should do his or her work. And I wouldn't like to see investigators taking a long time to investigate these cases. We also wouldn't like to see cases literally dying, as so is the saying, at the police stations. Somebody brings a case reporting those who are violating their rights, especially the rights of women and children. We are talking about serious or capital offenses of defilement, of rape. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about.
Some experts argue that government and civil society ought to take this fight to communities.
As a country, we need to prioritize SGBV and interventions that are geared towards that. This includes sexuality education, increasing funding, but also improving the enforcement mechanisms that are needed in order to convict people who suffer from SGBV.
So the men need to be supported to get into these sessions, to start these conversations with men so that they get to understand what does it mean, what does it feel, what is my role, what is it that I should do to make sure that, one, women and girls are not violated. In whatever respect, they are not violated. But our relationship with women and girls is that of respect, is that of equality. We need to see the laws working, okay? We need to see the justice system, all the men who are into the justice system. We need to see the activism that men are really making sure that all these problems against women and girls, the violence against women and girls is stopping, is being eliminated, because law is important in catalyzing the transformation of society.
For us, our main tool is preaching the gospel. Our main tool is using counseling sessions, using our in-beauty organizations within our faith communities. For us, Anglicans, we have Mothers Union, Fathers Union. We have the youth, and use those channels to address these issues.
We saw the police crime report the other day telling us the numbers of children defiled, and the excuse they are giving is that these are children that are doing domestic work, that stay home without anyone observing them, and they are defiled. Doing domestic work is a problem alone. Why then add the defilement? It's pathetic. We don't like it. We don't want it. We should reject it.
The Uganda Police Annual Crime Report of 2020 also shows that more than 14,000 cases of gender-based violence and defilement were registered, but less than 10% reached court, resulting into 900 convictions only.
So we need to do more in terms of enforcement, in terms of investing in improving our forensic science, making sure that our police officers can collect evidence appropriately, introducing rape kits within our health facilities, and helping people to be able to access justice from that front.
At Chetume Health Center, where we found Namitala, Henry Kayondo, the in charge of the facility, says they do not usually handle matters of sexual and gender-based violence, as it is not directly their mandate.
We receive 40 to 60 women a day, but they come seeking different kinds of services. We have a counseling department whereby sometimes you get involved into getting to know what the client is going through. So we get to get issues, especially during the COVID time, where couples get issues, especially we are providers of family planning. So you find that some men don't believe in family planning. So sometimes women feel they want the service, but their husbands are not accepting to or allowing them to get a service. So you'd find that women can come without their husband's consent. So it actually starts up violence. How did you go to the clinic to get family planning without telling me? You know, I don't believe in family planning. But basically, what we do is we ensure that we involve men, we counsel men with their homes to the clinic. Then two, we also had kind of change in working schedules, because we didn't want this kind, we are trying to avoid overcrowding. So you'd find that instead of 10 service providers working in a day, we reduced to 4. So you'd find a client coming on that particular day when I am off as a service provider, and I'm a specialist in a particular service, and I'm off. So it became hectic in terms of mobilizing someone to come from home.
The Domestic Violence Act of 2010 stipulates that local council courts can hear such cases and accord appropriate punishment, which includes imprisonment not exceeding 2 years, a fine, or both for offenders found guilty. But usually the victims fear to speak out.
Ewanvuya nnyo ebigambo n'ebiwanvuya naye nga saagendayo by the way kubanga egenda negamba nti ate mukole statement ate mukole kino ate babawuubi.
It bothers me a lot. It bothers me to the marrow that we who are supposed to protect the rights of women and children in our society, we are complicit into these violations. Let me tell you, I am ashamed. Somebody comes to the police station, reports a case on gender-based violence or sexual gender-based violence, and the file is there. There's nobody following up.
Nga ndowooza bwe nabisaamu poliisi ate ne bigenda wala. Bw'abanga omusajja ye taata w'abaana bo, waliwo w'okirekera. Ye bwe banaamusiba n'enfunamu ki. Ate sinze ejjo mmuggyayo kuba talina wadde ekikumi. Ebintu ebifaanana bwe bityo n'abaana batunuulira ani mbu mama yasiba taata.
These societal prejudices usually render the law toothless. The negative consequences of sexual and gender-based violence on an individual's well-being are many.
We observe that GBV greatly interferes with decisions to take up and use necessary services and commodities. For instance, women suffering from intimate partner violence are less likely to adopt contraception and are 46% to 69% more likely to have unintended pregnancy. Abusive partners are 83% more likely to coerce a pregnancy through forced intercourse or birth control sabotage.
During the recently concluded Generation Equality Forum hosted in Paris, governments and donors committed more funding to research and supporting programs geared towards ending sexual and gender-based violence. Angela Nakafero, the Commissioner, Gender and Women Affairs at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, says government has registered some successes despite constrained budget allocations.
We've managed to reduce physical violence from 51% in 2016 to 45% in 2021. However, sexual violence has increased. And of course, in terms of the future programming, we are going to put a lot of emphasis on sexual violence. We'll also put a lot of emphasis on economic exploitation of women and girls. We'll also put a lot of emphasis on online violence and harassment. And government is pushing for strengthening of the women's movement.
Government loses about 77 billion shillings every year as a result of the soaring and unresolved cases of sexual and gender-based violence. Walter Mwesije, NTV.